basics influencer marketing tool that works. Charell Star. Charell Star is the director of content and innovation at Essence Marketing and Advertising, an online journalist and contributor plus featured lifestyle, tech, and fashion expert for on-air segments. As a storyteller, Charell Star has a passion for creating experiences that connect brands to people in a way that celebrates, inspires, entertains, and empowers. Charell is also a former foster care youth and now advocates as an appointed board member of CASA and Lindsay and Silly Living and Life. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Guys, well, I'm super happy to be here and super excited to bring up our amazing panelists. The first one up is Puno. Puno is a web designer and digital entrepreneur at heart. Puno is also the founder of I Love Creatives, a platform connecting creative living that slashes life. She also co-created PeopleMap.co, an Instagram marketing tool where you can strategically grow and track a targeted community. Come on up, Puno. You're welcome. All right, next up I've got Jim Mulhearn. Jim is the CEO at AmbassadHer, a female-focused community of over 250,000 decision makers and consumers. He began his career at Warner Brother Records, where he oversaw the E-Team, Street Teams, and social media pages for most of the artists on the label. After his time at Warner, Jim went on to build and manage multiple communities of over 200 members. He and the AmbassadHer team have overseen the execution of 500 micro-influencer campaigns and are obsessed with improving the influencer marketing experience for clients and influencers. Hey, Jim. Next up, we've got Lindsay Fultz. Lindsay is the VP of Brand Partnerships and Strategy at the Amplify, an influencer marketing technology company. I love influencer marketing technology. I love combining the two. Named social media's rising star in the events industry by Event Solutions magazine and one of the 42 most passionate businesswomen on Twitter, you get it girl, by the Huffington Post. Fultz has led integrated influencing marketing strategies and campaign executions for some of the top brands and movie studios in the world, such as Dove, CoverGirl, Ford, Lionsgate, Campbell Soup, and Axe. Get it, girl? And last but not least, we've got Kendra Bracken-Ferguson. Yeah. Come on up. Now the Chief Digital Officer of CAA CBG, the largest brand management agency in the world, with 30 offices in over 20 countries. Kendra leads a global team of digital marketing experts and social media natives. That is not easy. Girl, you got this. The Brain Trust, the social media agency that Kendra founded in 2016, joined CAA CBG, which is a joint venture between Global Brands Group Holding Limited and the Creative Arts Agency at the end of 2017. Previously, Kendra co-founded Digital Brand Architects. Awesome! Everyone, they deserve a round of applause. So I know we've got a lot to cover in a short time, but we're going to try to make this fun and informative. I'm going to start with, let me start with Jim, because I know your background at Warner. Awesome, awesome. So let's just kick this right off. So talking about influencers and sort of how they can market themselves better, you know, what can they do to package themselves as sellable to brands? Like, what are your tips for influencers to actually be able to sell themselves to brands?
Yeah, great question. First, thanks for having me, Simply. But I would say the first thing is don't do the fake followers thing. Don't do the pods thing. That's over. Authenticity is the number one thing that brands are looking for these days, and it's really tough with all the solutions and technologies out there to fool people, and you're only really going to end up hurting the marketplace and future budgets and future brands being able to do this stuff if you try to game the system. That would be the number one thing is just keep it authentic, keep it real. I tell our members all the time, it's much better to have 5,000 real followers than 50,000 fake followers. It'll get you a lot more business. It'll put you in line with the right brands, and you'll get a reputation for delivering on whatever budgets you're given.
Awesome. And Lindsay, I'm going to ask you the same question. I really want to hear the different perspectives of the panel. So what can influencers do to really package themselves as sellable to brands?
I mean, definitely piggybacking on what he said. I mean, Keith Wade, the CMO of Unilever, at Cannes announced that they will no longer be working with any influencers that have bought fake followers. But adding to that, I think it is important for influencers to know their audience demographics, because organic reach is rapidly declining. So brands are looking at the maximum organic reach that they can get within a specific audience. And then also creators that are cross-platform, that have large followings and great engagement, not just on Instagram, but on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. So cross-platform, and then being able to also do video well, because brands want deeper integrations with influencers. So not just looking pretty in a photo, but being able to translate the personality to video, to live stream, to live events. I think those are the main things.
And I'm glad you brought up video, because we know video is super important. But as we look at sort of the trends in sort of paid influencer booking, I'm going to throw this to Kendra. What are you really seeing as the trends? I know video is a huge trend. Like, if you're not doing video right now, get off the boat. But like, what are some of the other trends right now that you're looking for with bookings?
Well, and I want to answer that, and I want to piggyback off of my panelists real quick. And I'm sure we're going to go into this, so I will not digress. But I do think one thing that's really important is just having a very succinct point of view. I think that we kind of overlook it because we're like, oh, there's so many great, talented beauty bloggers and fashion influencers, but having a point of view and really staying in your point of view in your lane is really something that brands are looking for, and we get it all the time in the sea of sameness. How do you stand out? How are you different? Why is a brand going to hire you versus the 5 other people next to you that have the exact same following, the same engagement, and are just as pretty?
It's having that voice, that really standing in your truth, having that voice. I agree so much.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add it because I think that it's really important when we talk about like what's the quality that makes you sellable. And in terms of trends, I mean, we're seeing it so much in video. And when you look at the platforms themselves, like even how Instagram is waiving IG stories and video, and now we're at IGTV, YouTube has gone back to giving guaranteed minimums to influencers for being back on the platform. So we were at a place where, in the beginning, YouTube and a few of the MCNs were basically saying, we're going to guarantee that you're going to make $200,000. And then we moved away from that, and it was really about content, and it was about the revenue that was coming from being part of the platforms. And now they've gone back out to giving the $200,000 minimum. So we're seeing the trends and the uptick in making sure that you have great quality content, which we've seen before, but more video content diversified across all of the different platforms and not just being the same. So even looking at long form and short form content, because for a while it was all short form.
Awesome. And Puno, same question. So the trends you're seeing with what you do, with your influencers that you work with, what are the trends?
So I have an app called PeopleMap. It's an Instagram marketing tool, and I think the reason why I understand like what's happening is because people do feature requests all the time.
Okay.
And one of the biggest requests as of late is definitely Instagram stories, but also comments. So we're primarily an Instagram-based tool, but a lot of our brands, especially the very savvy ones and the agencies, they are not just looking at the number of comments, but they're reading the comments. If like majority of the comments just say great, they don't feel like you've been able, or the influencer is able to communicate or excite someone enough to have more than just a one-word response. So they're really looking at comments, and they're looking at who does this person attract, and who does this person, like what types of other people are there. So we have a tool on there called Analyze, and essentially you can see who's engaging with that influencer or brand or whatever account, and they're looking at that. They're like, all right, who are the top people that are commenting to this person? Is that even the person that we want to reach if we work with this person?
Is that even a real person?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
And then Jim, I mean, just continuing with sort of what brands are looking for, are you noticing any of your clients, your brands, looking for specific demographics, specific styles, any niches, anything along those lines?
Yeah. What we do is a little different than probably what almost anyone in the space does. So our network is everyday women. These are not like even probably micro influencers. We pride ourselves on having, these women go to school, they have jobs, they run the house. So as far as requests we get, we can go really down. So we have some vegans in Austin, Texas. We get pretty. Because we have so many people, we can always service hundreds or even thousands of posts for brands and almost anything. But it's clearly, 18 to 34 comes up, in every campaign, and then from there it really jumps around. Video is for what we do. Because so many of the women we work with have less than 10,000 followers and they don't have business accounts. Some of those metrics are not as reliable for our. So what we typically do is say we'll do a post and then like an Instagram story as like a bonus for the brands, or we'll do contesting for the women who do the videos. But as far as demographics go, it's still 18 to 34, and yeah.
But I think because we work together and some stuff, and I feel like the trend is I really want to find this very specific person. Like the other day, someone asked me, I need to find moms that have osteoporosis in Georgia. And I was like, damn, challenge.
Yeah, we have one going right now where it's women with children 3 months to 9 months old.
Right. Well, so
That's the window.
But for us, what we have to do is figure out what information are the influencers telling. What are they putting in their profile bio? What hashtags are they using? How can we find them? So the more SEO savvy you are with your social accounts, the easier it is for us to find you.
And I think, like, adding to that, it's interesting because we're heavy in multicultural, but we're also gen market. So like for our Sally Beauty client, we're agency of record on both sides. And we recently started looking at women with natural hair, curly, kinky, coily, wavy, and then relaxed hair. And then we divided it. So we started with the tools, but then we literally had to go into the comments as well because it was more about the audience. And for Sally, as a brand, they know that they can convert new customers from a CVS, from a Walgreens, from a Target, and less of a Sephora or Ulta. So once we did the search of the natural curly, kinky, coily, wavy hair, we then said, does the influencer naturally shop at Target, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart? That was like our next check. And then we went into the comments because we wanted to find out if their audience was also going to be able to convert against those stores as well. So even if the influencer matched the criteria, but their audience was like, oh, I go to Sephora and I get my Mael, then we scratched them off the list. So it's interesting when we talk about the niche space, especially when you start to deconstruct beauty and all the facets of it, but then the importance of comments and how you're cultivating your audience and what does engagement really look like and how valuable is a comment to a brand to know that not only will the influencer work, but their fan base will convert as well.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
I just wanted to add to that, we're all talking about comments, and that is one of the top metrics that we look at when we are recommending influencers to brands is the percentage of comments that are on brand. But much like when influencer marketing came out, everyone wants reach, so people started buying followers. Now that creators are knowing that we're looking at the comments that are the percentage of comments that are on brand, then you have them create pods to increase the percentage of comments that are on brand, right?
So let's talk about pods. Because I know there's a few people probably out here that are part of those pods as brands or as agencies that represent brands and work with clients all the time. Give us a little bit of your perspective on these pods that are springing up. So we'll start with Lindsay.
I mean, I'm actually not totally against them. I mean, it's a community of like-minded people engaging about similar interests. So I actually don't mind them. I'm in one on LinkedIn, and I only participate when there's a post that I naturally gravitate towards commenting on. But there are brands that do care about that. So I think it also ties back to the quality of the content. How engaging is it? Because if you have that, then people are going to naturally comment anyway. So I don't really mind them as long as
it's relevant. It doesn't
as long
feel
as it's
fake.
relevant. Yeah.
And Kendra, what about your company, your brand?
I mean, I feel the same way. It's really, it's twofold, because one is the fake follower piece, and there's so many levels of influencers that it's really hard to believe that if you have 112 million followers, that all of those are real people. And some of that goes back to the platforms themselves allowing that to happen and promoting it and not scraping. And because we've been so institutionalized in thinking that when you have 100 million followers or 70 million or 50 million, that you may be better than someone else who has 10, it's really, it's a fine line. And I think that what it comes down to now, especially as we're looking at A-list talent, macro, micro, mass talent, I'm less concerned about fake followers as I'm concerned about the engagement that they're getting and how people are interacting, and are they actually, their fans and followers, doing what they tell them to do. So if you're a celebrity and someone says, go watch my film, does the majority of your audience watch the film? Or if you're a beauty influencer and you tell someone to try this mascara, does the majority of your audience do that at a rate that's going to be substantial for the brand? I don't think that brands should be paying against the number of followers like in the traditional media sense, because it doesn't make sense. And so that leads me into the pods. So I have a thing about fake followers. I think it's really about the engagement. I think you're hard pressed to find influencers with followings that have been around for a long time that don't have any fake followers. I don't think that they should be penalized if their audience is converting and engaging when you need it to. And I think we just have to be real about that and have a conversation. And in terms of the pods, I'm of the same vein. I mean, the pods, you're not having someone who's in automotive joining a beauty pod trying to do a contest. Like, it's relevant content, it's participatory content, because it's people having a conversation and leading each other to the next one. And I think that whenever it's done with the intentionality to stay on topic, stay on brand, then I think it's beneficial.
That was a lot. I'm sorry. No, that was a lot, but that was good. It was definitely good for the audience to hear that. Lindsay, you were about to say something.
I just want to, and I think part of it also has to be put back on the brand. So if one of the KPIs is, you know, an influencer.
Sorry, you guys know KPI? Everyone? Okay, just want to double check. Keep going.
If we're asking an influencer to create content and ask their audience to click on a link to then check out something, I do put it on the brand as part of strategy. Well, it needs to kind of mimic the social experience. So have another piece of that influencer's content, a how-to video on CoverGirl. So when they click on it, they can watch the video and then it's shoppable. Otherwise, they're driving to some place that there's no likeness of their image and then they bounce. So that's one thing that we really talk about strategy-wise for brands is, well, are you giving them something more when they go to that page?
Is it paying off in the end?
Yeah,
I mean, influencers have to carry some of the weight, but so does the brand.
Exactly, like a photo goes to an Instagram story, they drive to CoverGirl, where a different image of that influencer lives on the CoverGirl homepage, they click on it, it's shoppable.
I would add one more thing about comment pods. So a lot of the people that use PeopleMap are trying to grow their account, whether or not they're brands or they're influencers. And one of the biggest things that I tell them is, if you have a pod, you're basically regurgitating that community. If you, for example, like Skinny Confidential, Lauren Everett's, she comments to all of her followers or new people like an hour a day. That puts your like those comments, your posts potentially in other communities. So if you just keep staying with the same community, then your posts are just gonna be in the same world too. You gotta let it flourish, and the best way to do that is to engage with lots of different people as opposed to the same 10 or 15 people every post.
That's a great point.
Stuck in it. You have to, like, the whole thing about social media is being social.
Exactly.
And you can't get stuck in your own community. It's the same way of branching out and liking other people's comments and participating in other types of media formats and channels.
Agreed. And so obviously commenting, very important now for evaluating the value of whether you want to work with a social media influencer. What are the other sort of areas you're looking like? Because we've moved past just the likes and the shares. So Jim, what are you seeing in sort of your world as far as like how you are evaluating whether it's worth like picking up this influencer? And I know you're working in a smaller area, but still, I mean, there are specific things you're looking at to say, we want to work with this woman in Texas to have her go and post something.
Yeah, I think actually go back to the point of view is actually now that I think about it, the thing that tends to separate, especially, she mentioned, it's putting you against maybe 5 women that are similar, same stats. Well, we have 250,000 of them. So you really need to have your point of view. You really need to, we don't like to use the word on brand in our, in our network, but that matters to the brands looking at them. And when we review people to make recommendations to our clients, the point of view is actually probably the thing that stands out. And the point of view to me is not necessarily a checklist of things, but you know it when you see it. Is the best way I could describe it, and that it factor, the charisma, and the reality is, some women are better at taking great images than others, and providing that point of view and staying authentic. That's the one thing we always ask our brands to do too, is give our network 2 to 3 options of images they can create. Don't tell them what to do, because one of again, if we operate in the hundreds and thousands of posts, not 5. So what might work for 50 women, the other 50 don't want to do that, right? So we try to kind of line up the brands with authentic women with great points of view, consistent.
Yeah, and I think the POV also stems from not just the content, but also the captions. They need to tell a story. That's where your POV really needs to shine through, because we worked with Dove, and their main thing was wanting, female empowerment, body empowerment. So we looked for women who in their captions really embodied a new POV that were transparent with the issues that they're going through. So I think when you think about your captions, don't just do one-liners or don't just do hashtags, but really tell a story.
Agreed. I think the story is everything. That's my entire background, my entire career. But if you're not telling a story, why are people tuning into you? And how can the brand understand who you are in one image? And so the story is so important. As far as when we think about the entire social media game and sort of where we are, at the end of the day, it's become about sales. Especially when we're talking about brands, not when we're talking about personalities. But if a brand is looking to partner with a particular influencer, it's because they want to move the needle, they want to increase sales, they want to get people to go out to a particular concert or see a movie or turn into a TV show. So what are you seeing as far as the type of influencers you're leaning into that actually work and convert to sales? Like, is there a certain type of influencer that you see yourself doubling down time and time again because they tend to be delivering? I'm going to start with Kendra.
So I think you actually brought it up. I think it goes back to strategy with brands, because I say to brands all the time, influencers are a tactic. They are not your marketing strategy. They do not make your brand. And so we spend a lot of time kind of at the top saying, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? What's our overall strategy and mission? And we start to look at like the return on influence, and that could be a number of things. And we say to brands, we're looking at awareness, we're looking at traffic driving, we're looking at conversion, we're looking at optimization, we're looking at SEO, and we then have to match influencers based up on those metrics. Versus, I like Color Me Courtney because she does amazing colors and I love her and she's so great, we're gonna put her into a campaign. And so we always start like, let's lay out exactly what we wanna accomplish, and then we match influencers that way, because there are certain influencers who we know, you bring them into a store, they are gonna sell out the entire collection. There's other influencers, you bring them into the store because you're releasing a new product and you want awareness and you want all of their followers to know about it, but they're not going to sell. And that's going to be okay, because as a brand, strategically, you've said in the beginning, we want to work with this influencer because it's an awareness play. We need increased market share and chatter and buzz online, and we're going to be fine with that. Because just because an influencer has a great following or even a small following and a super targeted audience doesn't mean that they can convert. And so it's not necessarily like what buckets of influencers are we looking at. We're looking at influencers individually based upon what do we need to accomplish for the brands, and then we match it that way. And we've just launched our proprietary kind of influencer data mapping tool so that we can just go deeper than numbers and comments and engagements, because we're looking at brand affinities, we're looking at demographics, we're looking at local market, does it make sense there, and even at the product level. So I would just say to brands, like, set your strategy, know that influencers, you know, for us strategically, we always have a mix of like mass influencers, macro influencers, and micro influencers, because you truly need all of them to complete the purchase funnel. But if you know what your KPIs are and then you do your research and you really look at the influencer, then you can say, this influencer is valuable to me because it was awareness and it was less about sales. And then the last point is making sure that if it is going to be about sales, that you're connecting the dots, that your links are working, that you're using the content effectively, that it's not sold out when somebody gets there, that you can actively see the true dotted line from when an influencer posts and you track it all the way back to the site, and then at what's the point of conversion.
I love that. And I'm going to sort of flip everything you just said on its head, because I have worked with a number of brands who don't know their objective, but want to work with Color Me Courtney, want to work with Beth Me Moda. You know, they're cool, they're wonderful, but have no objective. So I'm going to turn this on to Jim. So what can an influencer do if, say, a brand reaches out to them or an agency reaches out to them and this brand really wants to work with you? What should be their first question? Like, how do they like get to the heart of what are they really asking me to do?
Yeah, and I think that is very common, first off, that brands just don't quite get it, and that is why a lot of businesses don't make it. But I think the first question an influencer should ask if they're confused about what they're looking for is, if I did X and got you Y, would you be happy? Like, what result would make you feel like our partnership was a success? And that may just be like, you know, again, if they don't know what they're talking about, oh, I just want to see it. I just want a great picture, or I want lots of likes. You know, I mean, we have heard it all. From, you know, I've had, you know, co-founders of companies just want to be tagged in lots of photos. You know, like that was their goal. I was like, okay, I personally want more followers. You know, so okay, you know, if you want to do that. So I think that's really most important. Just ask them if they don't know what they want. They probably aren't going to be too familiar with terms like KPI or know what engagement rate is or pods are. So you just need to be very, you know, direct and simple with them and just say, what would be a success in your eyes, right?
And that is so important. Actually asking the brand, what is your objective with working with me, is so important, because at the end, if you get all the way to the end and you show them all the pretty photos and the great captions, but at the end they're not happy, then that's not a success for them, and they're not going to want to work with not only you, but they may not want to do this again. So as much as you can help them, it helps you sort of lay out that objective. One
other thing I just thought of that comes up during these conversations is, if you're an influencer, ask for examples. So I say, you know, what 500 photos would you like to see tagged on your Instagram page from here on out? So ask them for examples, because if they're getting into this space, they don't know really what's going on, they probably saw a photo or a post on Instagram or like, I want those for our brand, right? Or it's a competitor, right? So definitely, just that's another simple way to get the.
And I think to add, like, influencers, this is a business. Like, gone are the days where it's just like, I'm going to be an influencer and I'm going to post and hope that a brand comes to me. This is like a money-making, revenue-generating business. Any influencer should consider themselves an entrepreneur. They should be looking at this as their company. And I love that, Jim. Like, if a brand is coming to you and they are not clear, it is your responsibility as the business owner to push back and say, I need to know, what's the end goal? What do you want from me? What does success look like? Because if at the end it's not what the brand wanted and you feel like you've done a great job and the brand is then telling people don't work with them, they don't know what they're doing, like it doesn't work for anyone. So there is some onus on influencers and you should feel compelled to speak up.
I think one other thing that influencers don't do as much is ask about the results on the brand side. One thing that I've only seen a few influencers do is they'll add UTM codes to their Instagram stories, and it'll be like, hey, it's Puno dos Tres or whatever, so that if a brand is actually looking at their Google Analytics to see where people are coming from, they'll look at the referral and the source would say that Instagram account. That's like a really great way if you think that you've made a difference.
Can you explain that to people, like how that works?
Yeah, so if you just Google campaign builder, you will get it's like a Mad Libs that's, it's literally like, I bought this purple thing or whatever, and then I want the product page, I'm gonna talk about that product page. So usually you would go to reward style and see if it's on there. Another thing you could do is go to campaign builder, put the URL for whatever this is, and then afterwards just say, in the source, put your Instagram account, and it'll add just a question mark equals source or whatever. But you don't even have to worry about that. But it's a really great way for you to be in there.
It's very easy.
trackable.
You fill out 4 things. If the brand does not give it to you, like when we work with influencers, we UTM every link for them, and it's down to, Instagram photo or Instagram stories video, and then the CTA and the campaign name, and if they post on Facebook, it's a separate link for their Facebook, whether it's a photo or video, CTA. I mean, it's 4 things you need to fill out, but it just gives you more data to sell yourself. And it's a must. Every single link should be UTM coded specifically to the platform, the CTA, everything.
I think if you are an influencer and you see that the post that you've done for a brand has done better than your average engagement is, make a case study, make a campaign on PeopleMap. We have a campaign builder that you can see, did the brand get new followers? This is really great for micro brands too, if you ever work with them. And then follow up with that brand and ask them. Just be like, hey, this did really well on mine. I was wondering, did you see any sales on the day of that post or maybe 7 days after? If you didn't, no worries, I'd like to brainstorm with you more, but I just don't see a lot of
follow-up.
It's a business too, and if you can create and foster a relationship, then maybe you can get the same markup that a retail store can in terms of affiliates, instead of just worrying or trying to get reward style 2 cents. You might be able to get $50 if you really foster that relationship.
I think it's just overall just take control of the information, right? Don't because if you do all these things, some brands may only look at one of the 4 or 5 things we're talking about, but if you do all 5 for every time you do a campaign with a different partner, you'll always be ready. You'll always have your kind of press kit ready to go. So I'd recommend doing all these things.
Because we have campaign, like we'll have influencers, they'll make a campaign and they'll essentially send it to the brand, and the brand is like, thank you so much, now I don't have to pitch you so hard to my boss. Like, you've done the work for me, that's awesome, thank you so much.
I think too, it's that's it. Like, you've done the work for me. Like, we work with Under Armour, and we just did a campaign in 10 cities, and we've been trying to show how the influencers are actually increasing the followers on their channels. And because it wasn't tagged on the other side, which is no one's fault, but we're like working so hard to make the case to Under Armour, like, oh my gosh, this influencer actually increased your following by X amount. And not only was it the influencer, but then you generated 5 times, because everyone that was following, 5% of the people that were following that influencer started following you. And so we're trying to do it as the agencies to support. But if the influencers are also helping us, then we can help them better. And then the brand is happy, because then they have a case to go internally and to say, oh my God, we have to work with this influencer again. Look at how they actually affected our brand channels, which wasn't even the goal. That was just a halo effect.
And so are you guys noticing a trend, or are you leaning into a difference of working with one large influencer versus a couple of small micro-influencer? Like, are you leaning either way in some of the campaigns you're working on? I'll start with Lindsay.
I mean, like Kendra said, I think it's a mix based on the different goals. I think one thing that we're seeing on the strategy side, which we're selling through more, is we do a test campaign with a variety of different influencers, and we see who's performing the best based on a number of things, right? On-brand comments, driving traffic, things like that, positive, neutral sentiment, and then we go into a longer 6-month, 8-month, year-long partnership with the creator. So we start a test with a larger number of influencers, and then we drill it down to a smaller number, and we go all in. Our average campaign is 3 to 5 months, and then it's 6 to 8 months.
And it's for your campaign, how are you drilling down? So when you start with the larger and then drill down to the smaller, like what are you looking for?
So when we worked with Axe, it was 30 male influencers from 5 different passion points: music, sports, etc., food, tech, gaming. And after the big 30-day launch, we did like a 60-page wrap report with crazy amount of data and insights, and we found that there were 10 influencers, mainly food and gaming, that were driving the sentiment down. It wasn't resonating with the audience, so we told them, we said, look, like, this is a year-long partnership, here's what we recommend. And we actually dropped those 10 influencers, and by the way, they were thrilled. They knew it wasn't resonating. They were like, thank you for releasing us. And then we went all in with the other 20, had a deeper integrations, did live events, PR, and so yeah, we started with 30, ended with 20, and then I think the following year they worked with like 6. So it's drilling down.
Got it. And Jim, are you always starting with a large group when you go out to your influencers, or?
Yeah, I think for us, obviously, everything's a little different in that. But when we do test with brands, it's more like. Part of what we do is so different that we understand that we're trying to educate brands on coming down to the real people. So we do have plenty of women with 10, 20, 50,000 followers. So typically what we'll do is, we'll say, look, we don't like to give necessarily promo codes and links to every single person, right? We're trying to teach brands at scale, which audience is the one you should invest in long term. So we'll do things like give a link and a promo code to women with 5,000 to 10,000, a different one for 10 to 15,000, or it could be age or something like that. And then we tell them, okay, we've done 500 posts here. We had 250 of this, 250 of this. This 250 is where you want to go. Or these 250 gave you awareness. These 250 drive sales. So now you have, as part of your strategy, whichever thing you're looking for, invest those dollars, in each direction. It's a little different.
I know you do a lot of analytics and tracking. You make it very simple with your system. What sort of things should our audience be looking at as far as being able to track their own analytics, making sure that they can put together a kit to a brand and say, hey, here's what my last 5 campaigns did. What are those sort of numbers they should be looking at pulling?
Yeah, so definitely if you have e-commerce, our site doesn't do this, but set up those UTM codes. And then also from there, set up any kind of goals or event triggers that has to do with revenue, so that you know how many sales that you have. And then for PeopleMap specifically, you can create campaigns on there, and essentially the way it works is you will put who you're targeting. So sometimes it's 30 people, sometimes it's 100 people, sometimes it's one influencer. And then you put what brand you're trying to target. And then what we do is we track that post, and we will tell you how many followers you got during that time of post, and then what the reach was, what the comments were, and all of those things. And what I like though is being able to look at our stats page, because that tells you your timeline. It'll just show you like from January all the way till now, this is what your followers have been, and then below that you'll see your campaigns. So you'll see when there's like significant spikes and how it's related to specific campaigns.
As the influencer, you can see this. You can see your own numbers, which is amazing.
Yeah, or a brand, it doesn't matter. Yeah, but I think like being able to, like what everybody's saying here is to historically look at what's performing and then double down is what everybody's doing right now.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to open the floor to questions. We've got a few more minutes, so just raise your hand if you have a question or stand. Cassidy? Awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you.
My name is Cassidy. I am an influencer. My social handle is @Cassidy. Share Beyonce.
Love it. Love it.
So we're talking about things like pods or like groups and the like. How and what tools are you?
Here we go.
Oh, do I need one? My mom always says I'm so loud. How and what tools are you using to actually ascertain what is real and, in my opinion, what is fraud? Because as an influencer, I was in pods before, I've been in like groups, and they're becoming very sophisticated as they're advertised. I need you to save, I need you to write 5 words, tag Dove, I need you to swipe up on the link, I need you to, get your free I did tons of CoverGirl campaigns, get your mascara, and it's not authentic, and it's really not gonna, transfer to sales. So how do you really dig deep to determine the real from the faux?
So the question is, just shake your head. The question is, how are you actually evaluating who's real versus who's fake?
Right, because the comments, I can have those.
You can have fake comments. So I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and we can just go down the line. Like, how do you guys evaluate sort of the real influencers, the real posters, versus people who might just pay to have 1,000 comments dropped on their page, right after they, post at 3 a.m. in the morning? How do you sort of evaluate those two?
So we've started going further back, and we use a mix of Creator IQ, which is our primary platform, Demographics Pro, Crimson Hex, and Meltwater. And we've started kind of on the CA tech side, merging the two so that we can see it. But on the manual side, we've actually started going further back, like 3 years, to start to see what the trajectory has been with that influencer in terms of like the content, the brand. Did they organically mention the brands? We always start there. Some of the products that they're talking about, did they ever mention anything in that brand's category? So even if it's not the same mascara, was it a blush, was it a lipstick? And then we're overlaying it with the tools, which Creator IQ has been working on a tool to show you the percentage of like fake followers based upon the data that they're saying. So we're doing a lot to make sure that that the data is actually real and that it's not just, sometimes data is always great, but sometimes it doesn't give you the clear picture. So we always go back to our clients and say, we've also added a human element. We've gone back, we've looked, was there organic posting before? Was the product previously mentioned? Is this something that they would naturally be talking about? Do they generally get this many comments on a post that's similar? And then from a brand affinity perspective, or then is their overall content and community connected to the brand?
Same. We use a mix of platforms, plus we have our own proprietary technology. All the influencers that we work with have our app on their phone, so it authorizes, so we're able to pull data direct. But also, we worked with Taco Bell on a year program with them, and it was like we had to comb back, and they would only consider influencers who authentically, unpaid, mentioned Taco Bell in a previous post, and so that greatly limited it. Well, not greatly, because everyone loves Taco Bell, right? So yeah, it's a mix of what she said, and definitely having an affinity already for the brand. Our proprietary technology authorizes it.
Next question, right there, ma'am. Yep.
Hi. Going back to the long-term collaborations, how do you avoid? So I work with a brand, and how do you avoid like brand fatigue, because a lot of it is the same audience with the influencers, and so like we did some long-term collaborations for a while, and then we decided I don't know if we want to do this anymore because we weren't seeing anything again after a while. We loved them in our 90-day trial, and then after that, just not so much anymore.
Well, I think it's we're constantly optimizing the content, the influencers, the campaign, the results. But it's also, that's why cross-platform I think is key. And I don't think retargeting is bad, right? But it's about how frequently you're retargeting and getting creative with the messaging, the cross-platform, and the spacing of the posts. And not all influencers on the long-term program will participate in everything. It is what is natural to them. Like, not all influencers will go to an event and promote it, like she was saying. Like, not all influencers will promote a specific mascara. Not all influencers will promote a specific burrito or Taco Bell, right? It's, you know, when we worked with Taco Bell, we had the 6 creators in the room, and they went through their, you know, their year-long plan, all the new products, all the different events that they want to have a presence at, and we went through each creator and we said, okay, based on your audience, based on your interests, which of these products, which of these events would you make sense? And we go that way. That way, it's they already would be attending those events, or they naturally would gravitate towards that specific product. And we see that, and it's been very successful. But again, we always optimize. If we do see that there is fatigue with an influencer's audience, we go to them and we say, hey, like, there's some fatigue, let's take a break, and we bring in new, right? We don't just keep with the same X amount of influencers on the program. We're constantly bringing in fresh, emerging talent and voices and points of view.
And also, you know, if they are somebody that you've been working with for a long time, maybe ask them for feedback on how the brand is being perceived, and maybe there's something on your end that you could help provide that makes it just a little bit more, I don't know, but I have a product too, and I know that it's not always 100%. So there's always something that you could do, maybe new features or whatever it is, to maybe create new content that gets it going.
Next question right here.
Cheers, thank you. I'm Annette with Reinventing 50 in Puno. And you know what, I wanted to know what your opinions were about the future of blogs, because no brand has ever asked me to really go to a blog and mention them. It's really, I'm seeing more immediate, hey, let's just link to the page. And so with the UTMs and everything else that you're talking about, I'm just wondering, do you think that blogs have a significant future, or are you going to start seeing that Instagram is really the blog?
I mean, we've been seeing a reemergence of Pinterest, a reemergence of blogs, because again, it goes with having deeper integrations with an influencer. So on longer term programs, absolutely, not everyone will do a blog post when it makes sense.
And I think that also kind of goes back to the previous question about when you have a longer term partnership, that can be part of it, kind of to mix it up, right? So maybe she's done an Instagram story 3 times, and that's kind of, you know, played its role. Then you start doing multiple posts, then you do a blog post and mix it up where she can tell a longer story, you know, and have a different perspective. So I think that's kind of goes back to also the partnership idea.
Can I also add, it's also about where they have their authenticity. I mean, as much as we're talking about influencers just on social, there are a lot of influencers who've created amazing blog platforms, and that's what their community knows them for. And so that's probably where a brand should be leaning in, you know, if that's the right medium for getting their message across. So I don't think blogs are going to go away, but there are different creators who like shine in different areas. And it's really up to the brand or the influencers who ask the question, what are you trying to get from me? Because if I am a blogger and my community knows me for blogging, I don't think maybe I should do an Instagram post for you. So
yeah, I mean, I think flexibility is key with these partnerships. Flexibility on the influencer side, and also flexibility on the brand side. Key.
I personally think that blogs need a little bit of a rethink in terms of user experience, because if you think about it from a user's perspective, you are going onto a blog and you're trying to get recommendations for a product, and you're just being inundated by a chronological feed of the things that you've worn that day. Or you know what I'm saying? Like, in a sense, I think that there could be, for example, Wirecutter, who got bought by the New York Times, is essentially a blog, but they have done an above and beyond way to talk about a product and convince somebody and make it very easy for someone to purchase. It's a resource. Same thing with, like, and not even a blog, but like gel cream, for example. She goes out of her way to like make sure that it's categorized so that it's easier to find. So I personally think that blogs do have a place. But it would be nice to see some other, it's a website, there's so much more stuff you can do with it than an Instagram account. And I think you can like really play with it and have fun with it if you look at it that way.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh no, I was just gonna add, because I think there's just different perspectives in terms of like the blog and its usage, where your audience is, how they're finding you, having a platform, and then also having something that you own. Because the great thing about blogs is that is your site in the sense of like the content. You're not worried about the algorithms. Like, you always have a place where you can tell your story. If we go back to storytelling, the blog does give you that aspect of it, staying relevant with your blog, bringing in the new tools, like new content, new creative, new formats. And then when it becomes from an influencer, I was just on a panel with like actual bloggers who maintain a blog, and they were talking about for them figuring out the resources. Like, if I know that my bread and butter is coming from Instagram in this moment, then of course I'm gonna devote time there, but I need to maintain my blog and my content on other channels because the tide will shift and there will be another platform that comes up. Your blog continues to be consistent and you still have to feed it and give it love because it becomes a platform that you own.
Yeah, and I think too, it's a great point. I think too, if you're focused on a blog, and we talk about stats and how to present yourself to brands, those are other things that matter in that perspective are also like email lists. You're gonna wanna show your open rate, your stats, right? Instead of likes and comments, you're talking about opens and clicks, right? So make sure, just like we talked about, you're doing all the different like UTM links and presenting yourself on an Instagram perspective, present yourself properly so that, again, you're doing the work for the brand. Okay, wait, we haven't done a blog program in 2 years because maybe we're not getting the right stats and selling a blog up the budget food chain isn't working. But wow, this blogger gets 50% open rate. We don't see it, so it goes back to also presenting the stats in the right way.
All right, one more question. I saw your hand first, right there in the aisle.
Is it working? Okay. So I work for a brand, and sometimes we have a little trouble figuring out how influential is an influencer when we're looking at some of our campaigns. And I wanted to ask you guys, is there some type of industry standard? Is there a certain percentage of engagement that you want? Is there a certain conversion rate, because I want the most influential influencers, and like you guys said, sometimes it's not about the number of followers, but digging deeper into that, how do you guys know how influential they are?
I mean, I think for us, like, we look at, a couple different benchmarks. I mean, there's industry benchmarks as what, engagement is based on your tier. There's also engagement rates based on your branded content, your non-branded content. Sorry, I just blinked. Totally. I want a burrito.
I heard somewhere that if you have at least a 2% engagement rate, then that's good to work with them, but I don't know if that's changed at all. It's higher.
It depends on the industry.
Yeah. It depends on the industry and the follower count too, right? I mean, obviously for what we do, it's way different, like, because women have lower follower counts. I mean, our engagement rate for campaigns is like 10 to 15%, but if you have 1 million followers and you get 2%, that's a hell of a rate, right? So, but I think when you're dealing with larger, it's about knowing the softwares to look at, because larger influencers may have 100 million followers, but 35 million of them are in Brazil. Make sure if you're a U.S. brand only, you're not paying for 35 million people in Brazil who can't buy your product.
I think it also depends on, like you said, what your goals are, and what your budget is, and what the price of your product is, and what your social influence is yourself. And like all of those things can equal a trade with an influencer at a certain level, or if you come to me like after this, and I'll give you a link that just like I broke down what those things are, and it helps a lot of brands just kind of be like, okay, this is where I'm at, this is the price point, blah, blah, blah.
Will you post that link on your Instagram today so everyone in the room can check it out?
Nice.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Hire this girl.
Yes. All right, guys, well, that is our time. I want to say thank you to our amazing panel. Give them a round of applause.